Program Committee. This is our second meeting. As we said before, it's a meeting, not a hearing, although the public may listen. We're not taking public comment, but we will take comment from all the people on the screen.
Jim, hold on 1 second. I just want to make sure GTV is connected with us.
Okay.
Adam was there and then he dropped out on video, so I just want to make sure we get the green light.
We're getting the green thumb. Okay.
All right, we're ready. Go ahead.
Good. Okay. We're going to read the COVID-19 modified right to know law notice that due to the COVID-19 outbreak in accordance with Governor Sununu's Emergency Order 12, Executive Order 2020-4, this committee is authorized to meet electronically. There's no physical location. We're not meeting at the town hall. But this is as authorized by the governor's order. But however, in accordance with that order, we confirm that all have it.
The phone number to call in?
Yes, so the public,
Is,
they want to hear it.
Yep, it is 603-766-JOIN, which is numerically 5646. So the phone number again is 603-766-5646. And the participant code is 785645, followed by the pound sign.
Okay, thank you. We're providing public notice of necessary information for accessing the meeting. So you have the telephone number if the public is listening. If anybody has a problem with the telephone access, call 660-5000. And we will adjourn the meeting if the public cannot gain access to listen to the meeting. All votes taken at the meeting will be by roll call. We will, although I don't expect any votes, we'll take a roll call attendance, and then as required by the right to know law cases, anybody in the room with you during the meeting, we're going to not count people who pass through occasionally, like my spouse, Jane, but people who are actually present, so they're actually participating in the meeting. Let's start with Danielle. You've been leading. I want to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Danielle Sora. I'm the Finance Director and Assistant Town Administrator here in Goffstown.
Joanne?
Hi, I'm Joanne Duffy, Planning and Economic Development Director.
Kelly?
Ellen Vermont, School Board Rep, and I am alone.
Ellen?
Yes?
Justin,
Can I be heard?
tell us who you are.
Hello? Ellen Vermont, School Board Rep, and I am alone.
Yeah? Yeah?
Me?
Yeah.
Yep. Gail Lebrecht, alternate, I'm confusing my things. Community member at large, recording secretary. And I'm alone.
Okay, is Jeff on the phone?
Jeff has not called in and he hasn't reached out to us saying there's technical difficulties, so he may have had a scheduling conflict today.
Okay. I'm Jim Raymond, the chair of the committee, member of the planning board. I'm alone, unless my wife wanders through. Daniel, why don't you introduce I call them the presenters, the guests, and then we can have them tell us more.
Sure. So on tonight's agenda, you have with us the Parks and Recreation Director.
Kelly.
Oh, Joanne, thank you.
I had a special introduction at the end, but Kelly Boyer, Select Board Rep, and by myself.
Thank you. The presenters this evening are the Parks and Recreation Director, Rick Wilhelmi, and also with us are the Police Department representatives. So we've got Police Chief Eric Serino and Police Captain Dan Connolly is on the phone line as well.
That it?
That's it for tonight's agenda.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions before we begin on the procedure that we're following? We did it last week. Some of you have done this before. Just Kelly, you're new to this committee, but is there anything that with you that we want to go over? Are you clear? Kelly?
Oh, I've been on CIP before. I got it. Thank you, though.
Okay, I know you have, but we make up our rules every time we do this. Okay, who's going first? Should we pick on Rick?
What about approving the minutes? What about approving the minutes?
Oh, minutes. That's right. We've all had a chance to do the minutes. Yeah, it was like that if we talked about.
I have a correction. That's how I remembered. I have a correction.
Motion to, Owen. Dale seconds, all those in favor, say aye.
No, Jim, I have a correction.
Oh, what?
The motion to adjourn had a wrong name in there. Instead of Ellen Vermakowitz as being a voter, I had Susanna Buzzell, and she wasn't even there.
Well, amazing who can have present meetings. Okay, will that change? All in favor, say aye or raise your hand. I think we can see your hands better. Thank you. Okay, should we put Rick on now? Rick, you ready?
Sure.
Okay, Danielle, why don't you tell us which tab to go to?
All right. So the Parks and Rec Department has projects under the yellow tab. It is the 4th tab in your binder. And if you're looking on the matrix, you're going to want to flip a few pages in. It is page number 6 on your matrix. 6 out of 10.
Everybody good? Rick, are you going to work off the matrix or off the individual sheet or both?
I'm going off of my individual sheets that I have in front of me.
Okay.
And I was going to start with, go chronologically, 2021. Oh,
Okay, take us through them.
all righty, very good. Let's see, the first one for next year, 2021, would be what we're calling the Electronic Message Center. This is the information board that would be out in front of our building, in front of our property there, an electronic sign that can be utilized to announce registrations, information, various needs, or various different events and maybe emergencies, etc. This has actually been proposed since 2014, and we're looking at that for 2021.
Ellen, you have a question?
Yes, the first thing in my packet under Parks and Rec is the sports complex.
Yeah. So, which,
I don't have anything about electronic sign or anything.
The electronic message center was the last page in his submission. Or the second to last, the 2 second to last pages.
Found it, just not in order. Okay. Thank you.
very good.
Yep. So that's proposed out of the $28,800 project, and that's for next year. Any questions on that?
And where is it going to go? Is it in front of the complex, the building now?
Yes, exactly.
Has the rail trail or the new, I guess, parking area for the ball fields, has that changed your usage of the sports, of the rec center?
I don't understand your question. Does the changing of the parking lot where the
whole building, assess when we make changes in the rest of the area, what does it have an impact on you and your needs?
No, I don't believe so. Are you talking about the sports complex by the transfer station or the Villa ball fields?
Well, which one is this? Is this the one
This is
by
for the Parks and Recreation Building, right here on Mast Road, South Mast Road, Parks and Recreation Building. Electronic Message Center would go right out in the front of that. Area.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions on this? Okay. Keep going, Rick. What's next?
Let's see, 21. Actually, the pool, the new pool it's actually misrepresented. That is appearing in 2021, I think. That actually, did you guys happen to see the report that we had? I submitted that with my document on the pool. I don't know if anybody read through it or anything like that. But that job right there, that one, I would push out to 2023. Looking at Weston and Sampson, you know, they think that we might be able to get a few more years out of the pool that we have. I don't quite agree with that, but so I would push that one out to 2023.
That's a change from last year. Is that because you have more information now?
A little bit, Jim. You know, with them looking at it, the thing that nobody honestly knows is the true condition of the side well of the pool under the concrete all the way around. There's a lot of assumptions of, I mean, I know what it looks like because we've dug it up many, many times to replace return lines, suction lines, etc. So I know what it looks like, but what they're saying is the way the pool's built, it might last a little longer, but not that much longer. And of course, nobody really wants to say that. But so I think I would push that out to 2023. However, though, I mean, I think it's inevitable. I mean, that whole area just it needs to be leveled and redone. The pool house, if you read through it, I mean, structurally, the thing isn't even really sound. It's nowhere near the code with the bathroom situation, shower situation, a lot of things like that. I mean, that was a rustic type of camp built back in 1970, and lipstick on a pig, you know, put a little gray siding on it and it looks great. So nothing's really ever been done to it. So that, I would push that out to 2023. Any questions on that?
Mr. Chair, I have a question, please.
Go ahead.
I can't hear, Jim, but Rick, this is Kelly. Do you know, is this something that Parks and Rec would be looking to do a bond on, or is this a straight tax request?
Kelly, that's a great question that I think is going to involve the select board discussion and other discussion, and because it is a large amount of money. You know, I'm open for suggestions on that, Kelly.
And kind of along those same lines, is this something that the commissioners have talked about doing a multi-year request for, similar to the ball field, just because it is such a large, I mean, it's on here for $2 million. Have those numbers been updated since the initial request in 2011?
I'm actually getting final numbers on it, but that 2 million is a pretty good accurate number. Weston and Sampson, they haven't finished the drawing per se, like the conceptual drawing. They gave me a conceptual drawing and my jaw dropped and I said, whoa, that's a bit much. So they're going to actually redo that. So.
Okay, and so has there been any talk about a multi-year ballot request for this, or like what do you foresee the breakout being? 'Cause this is-
So when you say a multi-year ballot, are you thinking of a capital reserve fund to say each year put it on a warrant and slowly get to the 2 million? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I was asking if that had been considered, or if the commissioners were going to propose a bond, or, like what mechanism are you going to get this $2 million? Because
I
just
think
pushing
that I keep
2023 is a lot to put on that year just by itself without any kind of, breakdown of how we're going to get it. You know what I mean?
I totally get what you're saying. And I think what has to happen is, in all honesty, is we have to really look at that as a team, the select board and not just the commissioners. They realize that that's crazy money, but maybe the proper way to do that is to have a capital reserve fund and then start looking and adding that way as you go forward. But I think that's a decision that more than the commissioners need to be. I would say our select board is going to have to help with that, a little bit of guidance as well. All set with that one? Any more questions? We all good?
And
Hold on 1 second. We're having technical difficulties. Ellen was asking a question, but it sounds like Rick couldn't hear it. So Ellen, go ahead and try again.
All right, last year, this project was put forward as closing Roy Park Pool and putting in a splash pad and replacing the Barnard Pool so that the whole town would only have one pool. And at the time, I had suggested that some outreach be done with the Penardville part of town. If I lived there, I know I'd have a problem with doing away with the pool at the park there. Has any outreach been done about this? Because it will take the
No.
effort of our entire community.
No, not at this time.
And if we did two pools, would it still cost $2 million?
It would cost more.
I'm concerned that wherever this goes, it's going to need the full support of all parts of our community, and I'm not so sure anything can happen unless there's an outreach to Penardville beforehand.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Ellen,
Just my input.
the issues we identified last year before I think we're ready to recommend moving forward to this, but still on the to-do list. So just to recap, Rick, what year are you proposing this for now?
I'd look at it at probably 2023. And then that could give us a little more time to do these inquiries.
Kelly's asking
It might even have to go out farther. I mean, if the select board and other people have a better theory, philosophy of how to generate that money and create a capital reserve, we're open for that suggestion too.
Well, last year you talked about the keeping things going by patching them.
Yes,
but
sir.
you were concerned about possible failure of the pool. How do you assess that now?
I cross my fingers and hope that it works every year.
I assume there's been no change in that based on any of these, although you have the report that on the maintenance you're doing.
Correct.
If I may,
Ellen?
without these pools, either of them being used this year, is there any work that can be done over the summer to improve what's wrong?
I think what is wrong, you're going to be very surprised at the cost to try and fix these. And the only true way to fix them is to rebuild them. I'm sorry to sound that way, but you can't keep putting lipstick on a pig. You can't.
I don't disagree with your assessment and the need. My only concern is I don't know how one pool is supposed to serve the entire town.
Well, I mean, we're a town of 18,000 people.
Right.
I don't, in my opinion, we could have one pool in this town and one decent sized pool and we are fine. Our problem with that is we have a divided community. So our divided community, I think, is going to be more of an issue than having one pool and having one pool work for this community. So there's a different issue. There's two issues, really. It's a divided community.
Yep.
And you have one pool, one decent sized pool would serve this community fine. But we have a divided community, and that is our true issue.
I agree.
Last year, the political issue, call it, and then Kelly said the financial issue.
Because Roy Park Pool is in no better condition. Roy Park Pool, the main drain is gone. It's corroded and gone. So what we did is we sealed it and we put the liner over it. So that way there, because that's a huge fix right there. That's a lot of digging and that's a lot of pipe running. So that one's working. And at both pools, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, folks, but 1970 was a great year.
Well, the purpose of this committee is to identify the needs.
I'm just telling you what it is.
Any other questions? Rick attached a fairly good report on the pool to the sheet, which I sent you a reading. I think we've grappled with the challenges of this project last year, and I'm hearing them again. And Rick's statements last year about the lipstick on the pig and so many words. Same thing now. So we can put it on our list. We can discuss it. I'm not sure we can solve those problems. Okay, Rick. Do you want to move on, or do you want to?
Sure. Let's see. Let's go on to the sports complex, Goffstown Sports Complex. Right now, as you all know, we've completed our phase 1A of that complex, which is the two rectangular fields and the parking, the first parking, the retention ponds, and then we're putting in the irrigation. Phase 2 of that was originally going to be to build a 90-foot baseball diamond. That baseball diamond, after the commissioners have really kind of looked at it, and we met with the school business administrator and the athletic director as well, we as the town don't really need that 90-foot baseball diamond. The school is in more need of a 90-foot baseball diamond. Right now, they use Lions Field for their varsity games, and they use Allard Park, which is a private family-owned facility, for their JV games. So what the commissioners looked at is said, okay, fine, we're going to kind of pull our hands out of that 90-foot baseball diamond. And if the school wants it, we can save the space for the school to build that thing. So we're kind of scaling back on that 90-foot baseball diamond. However, if you know, the land is there, if somebody wanted to use it to build that, that's fine. So we got to have some more discussion about that. Goffstown Junior Baseball has went and purchased the land over at the Villa, the old Villa Fields, or the Villa Fields. They bought it, they own it. They've invested money in their parking area over there. So I don't foresee the little fields, the smaller baseball diamonds being built. What is still needed is practice rectangular space for all those sports that use practice or use rectangular fields. And I don't want to get caught saying soccer and just soccer. It's soccer, football, all those sports that use rectangular fields. So we've kind of redid the model of those, putting 3 rectangular fields over there. So what I'm saying to you is this is going to be put off in my mind until we get some direction from our counterparts of where they would like to go. Because the building process was to kind of go counterclockwise. Because what our DPW does is they're removing sand using for projects on our roads, and that's how they're digging and moving. And so we gotta come up with a better plan, long and short. So in 2022 throughout, I've left $100,000 placeholder number.
So are we bumping it back? 2020? No, 2022 is the first year. Okay.
I have some questions, please.
Go ahead, Kelly.
Sorry, I can't hear Jim very well right now. I'm not sure if he was saying something. Okay.
Kelly, go
No.
ahead.
He's saying, go ahead, Kelly.
All right, thank you. Thanks. So Rick, as we know, the phase 1 of this that was initially put through before was for the $550,000. So this is for 2022 to 2024, according to the project narrative. Can you just walk through at a really high level exactly what this $400,000 is covering in phase 2?
It's more earth moving, and more irrigation development, and also like drainage and stuff like that.
So there's parts of the fields right now that don't have that already done?
The only thing that is done with that is the area that we have just developed for the rectangular fields, the 2 of them, the parking area and all that. That entire area is going to be brought down, and you have to have various drainage and ponds throughout that entire area to sheathe the water correctly and drain correctly. So each phase is going to have its own little areas of needs as far as drainage goes.
So what fields are included in phase 2? Just
Phase
the one.
phase two, like I said, was mainly that baseball diamond, but that's where I'm saying we got to take that out. We got to reconsider that.
Okay, sorry, I guess I'm just confused on what the actual proposal is then.
The actual proposal really needs to be redeveloped, Kelly.
Okay,
Because
got it.
I don't have a commitment. As I said, the commissioners don't want to go and build a 90-foot diamond right now because they don't feel that we need that at this moment. Like I said in my original statement, we need to talk to the school and get a confirmation of that. And then we need to redo what we're doing.
Okay, so can we expect this one to come back to us then?
I wouldn't call me back for this year. I don't know if that'll happen. You can if you want, but I don't know if we'll get together with that group and if that group will even have answers, to be totally honest with you, within this calendar year.
Okay, so is the proposal sorry, again, just trying to clarify. So this entire proposal should be taken out for 2022, or it's just a continuation of that conversation next year, or?
I would say 2023, we're going to start to look at this all over again.
Okay. So the whole thing's getting scrapped as of right now. This
Getting altered, not scrapped, altered. I don't like the word scrapped. It's getting altered.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, I'm really not understanding. So are you coming back to give us an amended, like this request this year, as of right now, to put into the CIP matrix, we're taking this piece of paper out and not considering it, or we're going to be reviewing it again? I'm just trying to figure out where this is going to fall.
It's a placeholder of $100,000 to stay in the matrix, and we will work on it and define it much closer.
Okay.
But Rick, would that be for 2022?
23,
Okay, so 2022 goes away.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
We've taken the position last year that we'd rather have a placeholder, even if we don't have final plans or numbers or even close to final, so at least we know what's coming. So I think this is being offered with that approach, which is fair. We know the need, we just don't know the final plan. So we can put it in with that notation that our recommendation is subject to further detail on, which we assume will be what's coming next year, but not this year. That's acceptable to everybody. Jeff is joining the meeting.
That was well put. Yes. Thank you, Jim.
Jeff, hear me?
Yes.
Yes, he's connecting.
Jeff, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah. Sorry for the tardiness. I forgot to add this to my calendar and got alerted. Jeff O'Brien, Budget Committee Representative.
Should I move on to the next one?
The UN interpreter to coordinate, because you seem to be hearing everybody. For
Yes.
example, Kelly can't hear me, so we'll let you pass the word on. So wave to us. It looks like Kelly can't, somebody can't hear, I'm gonna let you read it. And then when that works, we'll let you work as a translator at the UN, making peace between Iran and the United States.
Okay.
Go ahead. Go on. Is there more, Rick?
Want me to move on to the next one?
Yes, please.
Okay. 2024 is an F-350 dump truck. By that time, our current truck will be 12 years old at that time. So I put that in the matrix for 2024 as a replacement.
That's towards the end of the packet.
Yeah, it's sheet number 4 from the back, if you're following along on the submission forms, and if you're on the matrix, it's page 3, line 124.
Danielle, do you know if this vehicle is a state bid vehicle?
Yes, it would be.
It is. Yes.
Thanks.
Any questions on the dump truck? Dump truck.
Ellen has a question.
Oh,
Does Parks and Rec have a capital reserve fund going at all for any of these?
No, there is not.
No?
No capital reserve fund is in place for any of this, no.
Danielle, does it?
Might that be,
I'm sorry, Ellen.
might that be something considered by the select board to help defray the cost if we can build a CRF over years?
Let me ask Ellen.
Just a thought.
Ellen, let me ask Danielle a question on that first. Danielle, does this, purchasing this, since it's all under the town budget, fit with any existing CIP that we have? I mean, our capital reserve fund. Excuse me.
When you're discussing the vehicle itself?
Yes.
No, nope. The only capital reserve funds that we have existing are for Grassmere Town Hall, the land acquisition fund, and also the fire apparatus. So that would be for the fire engines specifically.
Okay. Sorry, Ellen, I'm sorry.
But we could, if we chose to, do some capital reserve fund planning for ticket items like this.
Big ticket items being the projects or the vehicle that he's talking about?
Both.
Okay.
Both.
This is one of the only vehicles that Parks and Recreation has. So I don't know that it'd be worth doing a full capital reserve fund. It could be. However, the projects, you can develop a capital reserve fund for any number of reasons. It just has to be clearly defined and it would have to go before the voters. So it would have to be something that the select board decides to put on the ballot specifically.
I would think that would be a great idea for like the pool, that's for sure.
Town vehicle capital reserve fund, are you saying there is not?
There is not a general town vehicle capital reserve fund at this time.
Okay. Thank you. Sure, anything else?
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions for Rick before we release him from being tied up and pummeled?
It wasn't bad.
Thank you. It can be worse.
It was actually very good. It's good discussion. It's very good discussion.
Good, thank you. Shall we move on to the police department then? Danielle, are we ready to go with them?
The police department is still connected. Let's just give them 1 second to get the video.
I'm here.
All right.
We all set, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, well, I have to warn you. Last year, you promised us you blow up things in the parking lot for us. And I have to note that the fire chief has offered to let us climb up in the ladder.
So
Yeah.
I heard last week's meeting, and I can one up them. I'm giving birthday parades. Doesn't matter your age. We're giving free ride-alongs. Whatever we need to do to make it happen.
Okay, Gail, I want that in the minutes, please. Okay, with that introduction, why don't you introduce yourself on the public and then walk us through the
Great, thank you. So
proposal.
I'm the new police chief, Eric Serino. So I want to thank everybody for having me to present my first CIP, I guess, projects. And I would like to bring the committee up to kind of where we're at. I know there was talks last year about a new PD. So some of my presentation tonight is really depending on where we're at in the future here in the community with if we're going to make some progression on finding some land, buying some land, and then potentially moving forward with building a new police department. So please bear with me when I give you some of my presentation here. A lot of it's hinging on what we need right now to sustain ourselves for the future, but also if we do end up making some groundwork here on a new police department, we won't need some of this stuff. I took a lot of what my predecessor had in there, some of the parking lot stuff out because I feel there's a couple other things that we really need right now. And hopefully in the next 3 to 5 years, we can make some ground on the department. my other part is the part with the land is the town is already looking at acquiring some land next door to us, the gardens through the county. So that's kind of in the town's hands, a little bit out of my hands at this point. So if we are successful with that this year, I definitely will be coming back to this committee with some new numbers and some new projects to kind of give to you. So with that said, I can kind of start my presentation if you're ready.
Go ahead.
So what I'll do is I'll just kind of go through my presentation and I'll start with the 2021 and work my way down. And really the big thing here is, as usual, we really try to get some new cruisers. As everybody pretty much knows, these are our main means of getting around the town, and what we really use. Officers, that's their offices per se for 12 hours. We have been having some really good success with the Police Interceptor SUVs. Currently, you'll see that the projection of price went up slightly from what my predecessor had given to the committee last year. Ford, once again, has changed the dimensions of the vehicle, which caused us to, some of our equipment that we use and change over to the new cruisers is not fitting. So we have to increase the cost a little bit to buy some new equipment, to new light bars, some of the new cages. So what you'll see is last year, I think we presented about 39,677 per vehicle, and now I'm about 43,407, give or take a little bit there. But really what we're looking to do is I changed only a couple cruisers around because from the last time we gave you the matrix, we found that car 10, which is a unmarked cruiser, can still sustain one more year. And car 2, we changed with car 3 because we are seeing the mileage go up significantly more and the engine hours. So you'll see a little bit of a change from the matrix what I'm presenting to you. Both of the cars are the same year, the 2016s from 2 to 3. So it's just a matter of hours and mileage. I will also tell the committee that we are having a problem when we order these. So our 2019 CIP purchases that we were approved last year, we purchased our 2019 Cruiser in February of last year, where we soft purchased it. We took possession of it in late December, early January of this year, and we're still getting it outfitted as we speak right now. So my 2019 CIP purchase has still not been delivered fully to my station right now. So hopefully, if we can get through this kind of this spending freeze right now, and the board eventually releases the CIP funding this year, I can start to work on our 2020. But again, if we don't get that far this year, I'm going to ask the committee to kind of change the cruiser numbers from next year to this year if we kind of lose track of that.
Is that just a supply issue that was already there, or is it delay resulting from the coronavirus slowdown? Is that just predictable?
I think there's a little bit of that, Mr. I think some of it from last year was when Ford changed their dimensions on the new cruisers. It really took our outfitting vendor by surprise. So they had stock on our equipment that we use. And then because now it's not fitting, they had to go to the factories and have these factories like the light bar manufacturers and the cages that we use. They had to go back and redesign them as well. And then there was a huge influx of people that needed to order these and get them in. And then we had to wait for the shipping. So I think some of that's there. And then, of course, the coronavirus, our vendor this year, beginning of the year, just shut down completely, which held our car in their parking lot for 4 months. So it's kind of the dilemma we're facing right now. Anybody have any questions regarding
your general rotation? How many years do you typically want to keep one of these?
So typically we do 3 years, what we call on the line or on the front lines where they're out on the road, patrolling our neighborhoods. And then after that 3 years, we put them into an unmarked capacity where the admin, support staff, other people, not the patrol officers out on the street, will use them for typically another 3 years. So we're looking at almost a 6-year, maybe sometimes 7-year cycle. And then from there, what we do is we ask the board to release them to DPW, and DPW then takes them. Excuse me for 1 second, my timer went shut off. Sorry. So then at that time, DPW will take over and take the vehicles. So if that,
The question last year is, do you clean out the donut crumbs when you do that? But I'll let you deal with DPW on that.
we like the gluten-free bagels these days, so. Anybody have any other questions regarding the cruisers before I move on?
Now, Kelly, do you have anything on this? We beat it up pretty well last year on the rotation schedule. We can go into it in more detail.
No, I'm quite familiar with the rotation of the cruiser, so I have no questions. Thank you.
And Jeff, you too. You missed because you're new on the committee this year. Do you have any other questions on the vehicle rotation schedule?
I guess the only question I would have is how is that number determined? You know, not having the background of the 3-year and rotation that's currently going on.
Jeff, what's the number? What, the 43,000? Is that what you're asking?
No, the rationale behind the particular rotation schedule in terms of number of years and usage of the vehicles before they are transitioned off frontline.
So typically, and now I don't want to say we've always done it this way because I hate that saying, but typically that's what's been going on for about 20 years. But what we're seeing is by the time they get to the point where they're coming off the front line, you know, some of these cruisers are, even though they're only 4 years old, they're about 80 to 85,000 miles. Their engine hours are, I have a couple right now that are about 13,000 hours. Industry standard will tell you that typically for every engine hour, you add 33 miles to that. So you can kind of see where it's the difference of idling. And then what we do is we put them on in that support staff, I guess, the support mode, the unmarked mode, where we now are seeing cruisers with 120,000 miles and 13,000 engine hours. So we've determined that that's where the point is. Most of these cruisers will start to have problems. So in order to keep the maintenance lines down, we tend to kind of keep it at that 6 to 7 year mark. But then again, I have a car 4 right now. It's a 2015 with 81,000 miles on it, where the transmission just blew out. So we had to pay $1,600 to fix that, and that was an unforeseen, random act. So that's kind of where we're at. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
One of the things we talked about last year, was just to refresh our memories, is miles is a less useful measure of wear than clock hours, engine hours rather. If you want to explain why that is.
So yes, and I think it's important to point out, like I just said, that industry standard, like I said, every engine hour is usually about 33 miles. But our cruisers are not your typical drive to work, come home, go to the grocery store. These cruisers are operating 24 hours a day. Sometimes we can give them a break for 12 hours. They're idling most of the day. Like I said, there are officers' offices, so they're using the heat, the AC. They are frequently being subjected to acceleration, braking, and that's heavy braking, heavy acceleration at times. They're always in the elements between the heat and the snow. So for the average person that would drive a car and say, well, 100,000 miles on my car is great and it can last me 20 years. It's just really not true for a police cruiser. There's a lot more that goes into it, that they're driven a lot differently. And again, when you have a cruiser with 120,000 miles and 13,000 engine hours of idling, you start to see the wear and tear and the breakdown, which then the maintenance costs go up. Does that explain that, Jim, Mr. Chair?
Yeah. I get the concept of, in this past of this committee, some people have focused on miles when you tried to, your predecessor tried to teach us that engine hours are probably a better measure.
Thank you.
Okay. We're on a roll. Keep going.
Okay, so the next thing I'd like to present to the committee is really what we're in desperate need of is part of we have a men's locker room and a women's locker room. And really, my thought here was we do it all at once. We build a really big new locker room for both men and women to be progressive, to really change the way we do it here and incorporate all the new, technologies and lockers, but really make a place where we have a gender neutral locker room. The problem I have is I didn't want to do that this year, knowing that maybe in 3 years we might have a new police department on its way. But I can tell you right now that we are in dire need of renovating our women's locker room. Back in 1987, when they built this building, there wasn't too many women that worked here. I can tell you, I'm really pleased to tell everybody that we have 6 female officers that work here, and we have other women that work in this building, and they share a locker room that's sadly 96 square feet. So they literally change in basically a 10-foot by 4-foot locker room area. Once you add the 2 locker systems, the bathroom and the shower. And if I could, if everybody can see the screen, Danielle, if I can share, we took a picture today, the women did, and I wanted to show everybody. This is kind of, I don't know if you can see the screen. This is 3 officers and one of my administrative staff. And what happens is we potentially have 4 officers that are in that locker room at one time. And as you can tell, the back here is the shower. There's no room to change. There's a little bit of room here in the middle. And right where this picture is taken is the actual bathroom. And then that's it. So it's really not conducive to anybody showering, changing, getting ready. They wear all this gear. They have all their patrol bags. They have equipment in there. So really what I wanted to illustrate is we are in a spot where we really need to get this done for next year. We have an idea of how we're going to do it. We have 2 offices that are on the other side of that wall that we can move into and give them an extra 96 square feet. The problem is I put a $25,000 placeholder right now because unfortunately, due to this coronavirus, we have not been able to get a couple of our contractors in to give us a decent quote. I'm hoping that within the next couple of weeks to a month that we can have a good quote. And if it is over 25,000, I'll ask the CIP committee to look at that. And if it's under 25,000, I'm going to ask to put it in my budget and talk to the select board about doing that. So that's kind of the big priority this year that I would like for everybody to see that. Does anybody have any questions on that?
Ellen?
Yes. Your write-up says that this would go into the sergeant's office, workspace.
Yes.
And then where do they work?
So currently on the way we have it designed is we have 2 different supervisor or sergeant's offices. And it's really operationally day to day, only one sergeant is working. So the idea would be to take one of those offices, give it to the women's locker room, and then we would pretty much look at the current one sergeant's office and maybe just kind of take some of the stuff that's in there out of there and just let 4 sergeants share the same office. It's not the best idea. It's not the most convenient, but I think to basically, when you only have one sergeant working a day, to have 2 separate offices, to take that space back and give it to the women who really need that space for their everyday, I think it's worth the.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are you likely to have more information before this committee ends its meeting? You talked about the possibility of having
And you got to excuse my
budget.
ignorance. You got to excuse my ignorance, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure when this committee ends. What's the date for that?
If you'd
Danielle?
like, yep. The callbacks are scheduled for August 6th,
Okay.
and a potential deliberative workshop is scheduled for August 20th.
My hope is that we'll have that for you before that, Mr. Chair. I would love to have something in place by the end of the month or middle of July. We're
Well,
just,
You'll work with Danielle if you have information for us, and if you don't, we understand that too, but if you have it, then let's give you a chance to bring it forward to us.
I would really like to do that. I wanted to put a placeholder in there just to give everybody that idea of where we're at.
Okay,
Any other questions regarding that?
not seeing any. Jeff, I can't see you, so you'll have to speak up.
Yeah, I'll speak up. No questions.
Yeah, try, okay. Okay, move on to the next.
Okay, so in 2022 and 2023, we are looking to start to plan for replacing our police department radio consoles. Now, this is different than the infrastructure that you're going to see in the end of this presentation. These are the radios that are inside of our building. These are the consoles that our 911 dispatchers sit at every day. They're the computer systems, and basically we have 3 consoles right now that one of them has already been replaced, but what we'd like to do is replace 2 more on more of a cycle, so that way we don't get to the point where they're 15 to 20 years old and now they're failing, in which we found that some of our equipment now is starting to fail. We can't even find it through our vendors because it's so old, so we resorted to buying some of our equipment to fix these consoles through eBay and other vendors. So the idea would be to put this more on a cycle maybe every 8 years. They are computer equipment. It is electronic. So as you probably know, with having computers, that they don't last very long after a certain amount of time. So the idea would be to put this in the matrix and as not necessarily urgent, but kind of what we desirable. So that way in 2022 and 2023, we'd like to buy 2 radios, one of each year at a cost of $40,000 a piece. Now, again, we're going to try to work with our vendor like we did last year, that if we can lock in a price saying that moving forward, we'll get it, it'll keep it at 40,000. But obviously in 2022, there might be a small change there as the cost of items go up.
Daniel, I usually have you tell us where on the matrix we should be looking, and on the sheet. Do you want to do that? So everybody
Sure. Yep. So on the sheet, it's the 2 pages right after the ones you were just looking at for the lockers room. These are the PD consoles. And on the matrix, it is page 3, line 140. And if you could
Mr. Chair,
excuse me,
question, please. Oh, sorry, Danielle.
I was just going to say, if you could excuse me for just one moment, I don't know if you want to recess for a minute. I realize we're having a technical issue and I've got to grab the power cord from across the room.
Why don't we take a 1-minute break until Danielle comes back, because we're supposed to have our technology working.
Okay, hold on one moment. Yes.
I'm hearing a lot of click. Is that a bad sign, or are we okay?
Nope, I think you're okay. I was
Okay.
sorry about that.
So we're having generally technology challenges today, but I think I like that parade by dropping my computer in the floor. I'll do that again for another week or two anyway.
Do you
Okay,
want to
go ahead.
take a quick roll call to make sure everyone's back?
Yeah, why don't we do that? Ellen, you're here?
Yes,
Ellen?
Here.
Gail?
Here.
Beth?
Here.
Okay, I'm here. What did I leave out? Anybody? Oh, okay. Go ahead, let's keep rolling then.
I think Selectwoman Boyer had a question.
Yes, thank you, Chief. So my question is, we've discussed a lot of the different types of consoles and the technology that we need to update. So I think it's a great idea to put it on a rolling replacement schedule, but does this particular equipment need, we've talked about the advancements in technology, then also needing simultaneous updates. Is that something we need to account for in doing these upgrades, or is that on a smaller scale or not at all?
If you're referring to, I'm sorry, are you referring to just the computer, the console, or the radio itself, or the whole package?
All of the above for this particular project.
So the way it was explained to me is this was part of our previous renovation that we did, and we never were able to finish getting the consoles themselves done. And the concern that we're seeing now is that as our consoles get older, we're finding it harder to replace the parts. So the idea is if we can figure out a way to put them on some type of, I don't want to say like a cycle to replace them. That way we're not finding ourselves in 15 years saying we can't find this radio technology right now because it's so old. So we're trying to replace them with the most current technology that's available at the time, and hopefully in the next cycle change, we're still in a good place of not not getting to a point where we don't have the right equipment or the right parts to fix it like we are right now. I don't know if that answers your question.
Thanks, Chief. So particularly, do these consoles need any sort of software that go along with them, or any other kind of upgrades that they'll need to have regularly as well? I understand this is just a console part, but is there anything that connects to it that we need to account for?
These are specifically the radio systems themselves. So it would be your radios, your computers, the screens, all the mouses and I guess mices and the keyboards. There are a console that they sit at that currently, I guess the furniture itself, which is different than this system itself. The furniture itself, if it starts to get to a point where it's falling apart, we would come to either CIP or to the board about furniture upgrade. But what I'm asking for right here is just the actual system itself, the computer and radio system. And I guess the software is...
Right, I understand. We're not determining that replacement schedule now. You're just alerting us to the need to establish one in the future.
So yes, so I need to replace these eventually because at some point we are going to have a catastrophic failure, and our vendor is not going to be able to find the parts to fix it. And right now we're doing okay. So the hope is if we can replace them in 2022 and 2023, that'll be the new radios, and then we can put them on a cycle from there.
We don't know yet what that cycle will be, but we don't need to know because our matrix doesn't go out that far.
And again, I have to work with my vendor, the radio vendor, to figure out what's the best approach to that.
Right, I'm all set. Thank you, Chief.
Kelly? Kelly, did you have a question?
Nope,
Okay.
she was just saying she's all set with his response.
Okay, good. Jeff, you're quiet.
Yep, no questions.
Okay, good.
All right, so I'll move on to my next, again, this one is hinging on whether or not we make any progression with down the road, the town maybe making some progression on building a new police department. But as we've been putting in our CIP packet the last couple of years, our men's locker room is falling apart too, and we need some space in there. We have a room adjacent to it that we can move into. Our lockers are falling apart. They're a little bit old. They're small. The equipment that the officers need to store winter equipment, their bags, all the stuff they bring in their cruisers. We're getting to a point now where we really need to updating that locker room. Now, again, like I explained to the committee earlier, I didn't want to put to the committee, we need to do this all at once because I think it's really not responsible to put a lot of money into this building if in 3 years we start breaking ground or we're really making some progression building a new police department. But I will ask that if we get to 2023 and we're really not getting anywhere, we haven't, the land's not, it's falling through or there's no progression there, I'm going to ask the committee if we can really start to look at updating our men's locker room and maybe fully bringing the women's locker room into it and making it one big locker room that is sustainable for the next 5 to 10 years. That will incorporate some new lockers, new equipment, and a bigger space for everybody.
Danielle Kelly, do you want to tell this committee where we are on the discussions with the county or the likelihood of a new fire department, police station, or in the years that we're talking about? Is that something that you expect us to be looking at in the near future, or is this a distant dream? Danielle, you may go first.
Yep, I can elaborate a little bit. The select board did approach the county commissioners regarding some land in the vicinity, and they asked if the county would be open to discussing the possibility of having the town purchase some land. And the county was just bringing that to their commission meeting when coronavirus happened. So it is still very early on in the discussions. So at this point, we don't have a timeline to report as to when something like that might occur.
Is it likely by the time this comes to us next year that you'd have some answer on the county's willingness to move forward?
I'm optimistic that we would have more information at that time. But again, it depends on the delegation's meeting schedule and whether or not they need to bring something back to the larger body.
Okay, and I ask that because some of these, like the locker room, we're putting them in a way as a placeholder so that if it's not going forward, we can move forward on this project. But if it looks like the new fire station, that's because they have a ladder truck. If the new police station is likely, then we handle it differently. But we don't know that now. I'm wondering if it sounds like we may know more next year, but even then we're not sure. Anybody have any questions on that kind of rambling monologue I just gave you?
I do have a clarifying question, please, Chief.
Sure.
I just want to clarify that the women's locker room expansion and improvements is an urgent, immediate need for this. But potentially the men's locker room is something that we could push off a little bit, but it's my understanding that a year might be too long to kind of wait for that. What's your input?
I would say a year to.
I mean, it's for 2022, so.
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, no, it's not.
No, it's 2023. I was thinking, and the reason why I did that was because I'm hoping that we do have some good news coming out of the next couple of years. And really, I think that if in 2 to 3 years, if we're not making any progress, we're going to need to make a move on our locker room. So I'm kind of hoping I could push it out a couple more years and really we can just kind of make do with what we have right now, with the hope that maybe 5 to 10 years, maybe 5 years, we can start really saying, here's our land, we're breaking ground, and here's where we're going. So we can take this right off the matrix. And again, this goes back to the resurfacing our parking lot out back. We took that off the matrix, the extra parking lot and the impound lot. All that stuff was taken out of here because I feel that really, if we can look forward to the next 3 to 5 years, we can make do with what we have to not bring a huge amount of CIP to the when we can really look towards a brighter future for our agency. Did I answer your question?
Yes, Chief, thank you.
Thank you.
Again, as we said with Rick, we deal at some level with conceptual plans. This is more than that, it's a definite plan, but the big conceptual plan is the new police station that makes some of this discussion move, but we don't have that yet. So we have to plan for what we do have, which is an existing station that's stretched in capacity to deal with that.
Exactly. And that's why I'm trying to put it in here and saying that at 2023, if we're not really going anywhere, then I'm gonna really ask the committee and the board to help us out with getting a bigger locker room, because we need it.
Okay. And that was all on the warm-up to the big ticket item.
The big ticket item, yes. So the big ticket item is really what we're faced with now. I guess, it's been a kind of over the years, our radio infrastructure is starting to become obsolete. Our radio infrastructure comprises of antennas, large towers, microwave systems, fiber optic networks. And what we're seeing is some of this system is really starting to fail. We are trying to constantly patch it, fix it with new software, with new hardware, but we are finding that our vendors telling us that it is getting to the point where it's critical. Now, again, for those people who don't know, we are a regional dispatch center who dispatches for Goffstown Police, Goffstown Fire, New Boston Police, New Boston Fire, Ware Police, Ware Fire, and Dumbarton Police. So our infrastructure is critical to serving our neighbors. They also, obviously, they have a contract, so they pay the town. So some of this money that we're looking at could be absorbed there. But we also have, I've been talking to the fire department and DPW to see if maybe they use our radio systems too. Maybe we can kind of split the cost across all three agencies. And I know it's coming from, the town, but just to kind of show that we're all in this together. Part of my thought, though, Mr. Chair, is that, we are using the radios we use are top of the line, but the infrastructure is kind of falling apart. So my thought is we need to really explore utilizing new technologies, and some of that new technology is we're seeing the portable radios we use and the radios that are in the cruisers are now being, I guess, built or manufactured to use cell phone technology. So we're looking and exploring that. That's why I put this out a little bit further to see if, instead of us investing in huge capital on towers and infrastructure, that maybe if we can just look at new radios that actually bounce off of cell phone towers, that might be something better for us down the road. Now, of course, the cell phone towers already have the infrastructure. They're already updating it constantly to keep their towers going. I'm sure through my research, we're going to find that at some point, if we say we use a radio that uses the Verizon towers, I'm sure there'll be some kind of cost that, comes with that. But I'm really looking to see the long-term future here. Is it worth the town of Goffstown's, to really spend a lot of money on capital for these the infrastructure and hope it lasts another 10 to 20 years? Or should we start looking at more using Verizon or AT&T or Sprint's towers? So that's kind of where we're at. We're going to really start looking into that now. This was kind of a last minute thing that was thrown at me when I when I took over, that the infrastructure is kind of starting to fail again. So I really would just like to put that on a placeholder so everybody's aware of that. Excuse me again, my office light shut off again.
Sorry. Put on mute because Ben is opening, shutting a door. I didn't want to. But
I have it on a timer.
You've talked about the critical nature of this system. How long can we put off a decision on replacing it, knowing that technology evolves?
That's a really good question, and I don't know that I have the right answer for you because a lot of this was upgraded in 2008, and from 2008 to now, they are telling me, the radio manufacturers and our vendors are telling us that we are getting to a point where it's critical. Again, I'll go back to, we had a catastrophic failure in one of our main sites where a piece of hardware failed, and when they tried to replace it, the vendor themselves didn't have it. They had to find pieces on eBay to put it together to make it work. And again, I don't want to say that this needs to happen tomorrow, but certainly within the next 5 years, we need to start thinking about this because it's going to fail. Just like any technology, just like any hardware, it's going to fail eventually.
You're putting it out to 2024, which is 4 years away. You're doing that with some comfort that that's reasonable delay. I guess taking a position that we don't want the town's safety to be at risk.
Sure. I'm putting it that far away, feeling comfortable, knowing that we're going to really look at the new technologies that are available to us now and kind of formulate a better plan. Again, this kind of was thrown at me, so I'm trying to figure out what the best approach is. And again, I didn't want to come at the CIP committee in the next 2 years with $1 million project. I really want to kind of just set the stage and kind of say, this is where we're at and we're going to make do. Now, obviously, if we have a major catastrophic failure, we're going to go to the board and kind of figure out where we're at and see where we can go from there. But the way they're telling me is it could last another 5 years, or they can keep piecemealing it together. So at this point, we're kind of choosing to limp it by until we can figure out what's the best approach for our town.
Looking at prior CIP committees, they, I don't know how to say this politely, when the department has proposed something for a certain year and then comes in and asks that it be moved up, they're going to say, oh no, you said last year in 2024 you can't move it up. I think this committee understands that this project may get moved around based on what you learn. That's a fair approach, and that if you come back next year and say, no, we need to do it sooner, I think that's what you're asking us to consider, if that were necessary or advisable. I don't know if the committee can deal with that, but I think this committee can. Prior committee. We understand this is more than a concept, but it's still a work in project and process.
And I appreciate that, Mr. Chair. I think that, if that's the case, obviously the radio consoles, as I mentioned, were more of a desirable on a cycle. We need to replace them. But obviously, if our critical infrastructure is failing in 2021 and 2022, then yes, I'm going to unfortunately come back to the committee and change it up a little bit. And I apologize for that, but we're at the mercy of our infrastructure, and we're really trying to get a grasp on what's the best approach. So I appreciate you saying that.
Katie, do you have any questions on this project? It's a big one, although it's undefined still. Jeff, I can't see you, so you'll have to just charge into the question.
No questions at this time.
Okay, thank you. for the benefit of the committee, when we bring this back, when we discuss it, we can come up with questions then, and we do have a callback option that we can drag everybody back in front of us if we have questions, so we can wait on it. That's a good presentation. Anything else?
That's it for me. Thank you.
Ellen?
Yes, our next meeting is July 16th, and it's the school district. Is there any chance we can start meeting in person again?
Wait, let's hold on to that. I want to let the police off the hook first.
No, thank
Go
you.
on. We can discuss that. It's just on any questions on what's been presented today? I think it was a good presentation. Anybody have any other questions? Seeing none. Thank you.
Thank you very,
Thank you
very
to
much,
both you
everybody.
and to Rick for coming in and running the gauntlet.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Have a good night, everybody.
Okay.
Good
Have a
night.
good night, everybody. Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's talk then about where we're going next. And Danielle, tell us what we have on the agenda for 2 weeks from now.
Yep, so 2 weeks from now, July 16th, the school district is scheduled to present. They'll be presenting for all of the schools, actually, the high school, middle school, elementary schools, Glen Lake, as well as the district. So it's all of their facilities. 2 weeks after that, on July 30th, the committee will be seeing the presentations from Public Works and the Sewer Commission. And then once we get into August 6th, that is the callbacks. If you have any callbacks and the beginning of your deliberative workshop. That's also photo day, so we'll make sure to send out a reminder.
That's important.
And then August 20th would be a second deliberative workshop if it's needed. And then September 10th would be the planned schedule to present to the planning board.
Okay. Just for term, we'll be in school next time. Let's
Correct.
talk about Ellen's request. So, Governor, as you know, has loosened up on restrictions, although I think it's order number 52 does not apply to governmental. It expressly excludes them. So we're still operating within the modified right to know law rules, 91A rules that we talked about earlier. And whether we meet or not is in person is really up to the committee. I made a call that we're going to not meet tonight, and Derek and Danielle asked, and Joanne asked. And I guess we can decide whether we want to going forward. I'll speak for me first. I still have reservations, actually, about a meeting of many people. And that's what I call the planning board room for the first time. Because the guidelines that the governor has created is still 6 feet of distance and space staff. And I don't know if we have too many people to do that, but look at it if the committee is interested. Ellen?
I know I'm interested in looking into that. If we don't have, we'd have, less than 10 people in the room. And if we can create that 6 foot distance, I'd be thrilled that we can see each other and talk instead of this technology.
Which may or may not work. Gail, do you have a view? You've been going to the planning board meetings.
I've been going to the planning board meetings and the ZBA meetings, and I'm comfortable with that.
Okay, Kelly? What's the select board doing? Doing well?
We start back up on our in-person meetings this upcoming Monday, so we'll be there in person. We will still have the ability for people to call in remotely as well, so that will continue for the foreseeable future.
they call in, are they calling in on the phone like we do on the planning board, or is it like this format where on the WebEx or video?
Right now, the call-in is scheduled to be a phone line via the conference phone without the video, but we could, coordinate that however is applicable to each committee. So.
Okay, Jeff, deal with you? Come back to Ellen in a minute.
What's that?
Jeff, have a view on this?
Yeah, I mean, I would be fine either way. I like the fallback option of having a WebEx meeting in addition to in-person. That way it opens the most flexibility.
Okay, Ellen? You have a question?
Yeah, if we can do both, those of us who can get together, if anyone has a concern that they can also do it remotely, I think that might be the best way to go if we can do that.
Okay.
Both.
I guess I'm going to ask that we can get together on the phone with Joanne and Derek and look at how that would operate with this number of people, do it safely. I'm frankly, as chair, I have concerns about this. We're not going to do it.
Mhm.
I don't want to put any of us at risk. And you look around the electronic room, some of us have chickens that we once were in the at-risk group, or my parents or whatever. So I'm going to err on the side of caution, but I recognize that an in-person meeting has advantages. So let's, what we'll do is we'll come up with a proposal and circulate it to everybody on what we're recommending. Gail?
Both the planning board and the zoning board do a combination of both. So some of us are in person at town hall. Some applicants come because they do have plans and things to show, which the CIP doesn't have. But some members of the board and some applicants, and especially any abutters, they also call in. So we've got a mixture of both.
And on the planning board, Joanne and I call in, and it actually works pretty well.
Yeah.
We can use our imaginations on the plans, but other than that, it's been a good system. As chair, I'd have to be at the meeting, I think. I want my staff to be comfortable with it. Well, let's treat it as a concept now, and we'll get back to you after we talked about the logistics of it a little more, how it would look, what kind of spacing we can create. Danielle,
That sounds reasonable. We will also need to, of course, work with IT and GTV to make sure we are aware of what options are in place. I know they've tried certain technologies to broadcast with combined meetings, and there's been some hiccups. So we'll just want to check in with them and consider that as part of the proposal, whatever it is you choose to go forward with.
okay. Joanne?
Yeah, that sounds fine. I plan to continue to do remote.